Well, good evening, everybody. It's clearly evening where I am, but good morning to you if it's morning where you are. No matter what time of day it is, no matter where you are in the world, welcome to another wee video from the bunker. So tonight's going to be a wee bit different. Number one, because I'm hosting instead of Andy, and number two, we actually have a special guest. We have Mark Rapson from WFG Games joining us. Say hello there, Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Right. Well, we bit of history here. I first met Mark, maybe 4 years ago. When did Devil's Run come out? 2017?
No, I think it was. I think it was more like 2015 originally.
Oh goodness, okay, it's a bit longer ago than I thought.
I know.
Yeah, well, I first met Mark over at the UK Games Expo, and for anyone that knows me, you know I'm a Star Wars fan. But as far as science fiction and fantasy goes, Star Wars is great, but to me, Mad Max, that's number one. And the thing that drew me over to Wordforge was his game that just been released, Devil's Run, which clearly was influenced by Mad Max.
Yep.
I'm sure Mark was going to agree on that one. Fantastic looking miniatures, great game. But honestly, I mean, I've got a whole series of minis here. I mean, let's be honest. There's the Interceptor. For this miniature alone, I bought the game. So there's me standing beside Mark, having a chat with him. And he was big grin ear to ear, as he always has, full of enthusiasm, going, come on over, look at this, trying to promote this game to me. And he just looked up from the table at me, and I'm standing there with an arm full of like boxes and blisters and everything, going, no, I'm sold. I'm just having this, So run us through the history of Devil's Run there, Mark. Can you tell us a wee bit about how you came to do it?
So the story of me and gaming starts when I was a kid, really, and I got into things like Hero Quest and computer games, the Amstrad CPC 464 at the time. So I've always been into gaming, and off I went to university after when I got to about 18, and gaming sort of fell by the wayside because I had to study and I wanted to get a good degree, etc. And then after a few years, I sort of got into sales repping, boring job, well paid, boring job. And long story short, I ended up finding myself driving to and from where I live in the Midlands of England up to Runcorn, which is sort of slightly south of Liverpool. And I was doing that every week, at least once each direction every week. And it was boring. And I had a young family, and I was beginning to realize that, money isn't everything. And, but also my mind was wandering as I was driving along. And I don't know whether it was because of that or what, but, my mind wandered to the idea of smashing other cars off the road and blowing them up with big guns. And
we don't endorse such behaviour.
No,
we can't dream.
Exactly. And I just recently watched Mad Max, the first one, and I think the second one straight after. And I've been watching a lot of other movies of the same genre. So the things like I can't remember the names of them now, but basically Death Race and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, there used to be great games in this genre, but there hadn't been anything for quite some time. So there was things like Dark Future, Car Wars, Thunder Road, all of these great little games, which none of them were there. And I don't know whether I spotted a niche or just I wanted that game to exist again. So there I did. I sat down with my son, who at the time was about 5 or 6, and started sort of creating this idea in this game. And I had a number of other people around me at the time. So a guy called Richard Hawkins, who you would have met at various shows, who's my business partner, and he's sort of like my sounding board, and we work very well together. And the artist Dominic Kapitsky, he was there as well. And we just started creating this game as almost for fun to start off with for ourselves. And then the announcement came out that Mad Max Fury Road was coming out, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, we've got an opportunity here. So we hit the zeitgeist at the moment, and I'm a strong believer that when you go to Kickstarter, you need one of a number of things. You need an IP, you need a zeitgeist at the moment, or you need to be a very well-established company. And we weren't an established company; we didn't exist at that point, and we didn't have an IP. So we were lucky we caught the zeitgeist, and it was what people were looking for. And the Kickstarter itself, the first one, was it did okay from the beginning, but it was fairly slow, and it wasn't sort of like setting the world alight. And then the last day happened, and it happened to be at Expo, probably the year before you and I met, and it went supernova in that last day to the point where we'd gone from a interesting level of interest for the game to a quite scary and daunting amount. And the day that we got it, the people that were supposed to be making the miniatures for us had basically said, we're not going to do it. We were sort of moving away from that. We don't want to work on that sort of thing. So I was sat there with this Kickstarter that had made about £45,000, about 500 or so backers that had given me money to make a game, and I had no way of making it. So I sat there with my wife in the evening of the end of the thing and sort of said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got 45 grand and people want this game, and I want to make this game, but I can't because the people that are going to do it aren't going to do it for me. And she said, well, can't we do it? And that's what happened. So my wife and I, set up in our little garage a production line, and the majority of the miniatures, in fact, all the miniatures for that particular game back then and ever since, have been made by my wife and I in our garage. And then eventually the business grew, and we did a second Kickstarter for the Devil's Run, and it did slightly better, but not massively better, because it's got this very core, had this very core group of fans. And then since then, other games have come along. So Car Wars has come back. Obviously, Gaslands has sort of exploded, but it's predominantly just a rule book. A great community, a great rule set, as I understand it. But we've just carried on doing what we wanted to do, and some of the things we've done have been really cool and really brilliant, and other things have been probably less so. But it's been great fun, and to have this game still existing 4 or 5 years later, it's quite. Yeah, it's quite something. You don't normally, these sort of games don't normally last this sort of length of time. And yes, it's definitely depreciated over the years, and but like a lot of games of this nature, it's got a strong following and people that are still playing it. And I think as well, right now, with the lockdown, people are like, actually, we're interested in playing these sort of games again. And we're seeing more people join the Facebook group for Devil's Run, more people following WordForge. And a lot of them, I think, is down to Devil's Run. And I mean, I think it's a sort of game that potentially has the ability to sort of be there in the background for forever. And, we will probably support it for a very long time, until the point is that nobody actually wants it anymore. And that's what happens. So, yeah, it's great. It's really good.
It's really good to hear of such a good success story of something that was completely homebrewed. I mean, there you making this in your dining room, sitting there developing a game, and then making components in your garage. It's just a great wee story to hear, sort of like from a humble beginning and what it's become and grown into. It's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I've got a wee selection of the minis here, and in fact, I've got a personal favorite sitting here, the War Rig. My goodness, the level of detail that you have in some of these minis is just fantastic.
And back then we were really lucky as well, because what happened was we created this, and there's a small company who have also done really well over the time, but at the time they were reasonably small, and they were called Clockwork Goblin, and the guys that were based around that were really into their they wanted that sort of game as well, and I met them, and they said to us, look, we'd like to get involved. And they basically, we've got the mini-esque type car, which we call the Muggy. And they just created that. And they all now are part of Steamforge, because Steamforge saw this great talent pool and swallowed them up. And they're also the guys behind Conflict 47, which is a Warlord game that you probably know well. So it's a bit like some of the companies back in the 90s, and they had these amazing artists that no one really knew who they were, but now we know the name Paul Bonner, we know the name Carl Kapinski, we know the name Dave Alsop, and all of these. We were in that position back then. A lot of these models were created by Russ Charles and Ben Charles, and both these guys are probably top of their game as far as miniatures are concerned, and especially for those outside of Games Workshop. These brothers are the new Perry twins, and I always said it to them that they've got real skill And I mean, they've done stuff for us in the early days, but and they've gone on to do amazing stuff with Steamforge and lots of other companies as well. I mean, they're big in the industry, and we were really lucky to have them as part of the sort of extended team for this as well. Real British produced game, and even now, Devil's Run now has a role playing game that's linked to. It's created by a company called Red Scar, who are also producing the Mantic Kings of War role playing game, and Devil's Run role playing game uses the 2D20 system of Modiphius. It's the first game to be using that system licensed outside of Modiphius. So, yeah, as you say, considering it's a humble original story, it's quite amazing how far it's extended and what it's done for this genre of game. And I wouldn't like to go as far as to say that Devil's Run's the reason that Gaslands came along, nor would I say that Car Wars coming back and things like that. But certainly, we are Devil's Run is a player in this game genre.
Oh, you're certainly part of the catalyst. You brought that sort of that Mad Max feel of games back again, and yeah, like you said earlier, all the other ones have now jumped on that bandwagon since. And I mean, you were first there riding that wave, and I mean,
we were the first. I guess we were the first of the bring it back bandwagon, for that particular genre. And again, I don't suspect Devil's Run doing so well is the reason that Gaslands or Car Wars Part 2 exists. But certainly, there's a genre there that we're part of, and we're very proud to be part of. So yeah, it's great.
I'm just waiting now for Devil's Run in your pockets to turn up. That's something you've been doing with a lot of your games recently. Games.
This is it. I mean, it's good. It's a good segue into what we're doing now. So we obviously got involved in licensing other games and great games, and I noticed that there was some really good games that, again, going retro and bringing stuff back. There's some really good games that were not around that really should have been and won awards. So D-Day Dice is the prime example of that, and it was a hot potato, really, the whole IP, because it had been part of a company that had gone bankrupt and taken a lot of people's money with them on Kickstarter. And then we got the license, and we worked really closely with Emmanuel Aquin, who's a really lovely guy, but also a really clever game designer. And so we did D-Day Dice, and we did Airborne in Your Pocket with him. But I have to be honest, I mean, it's been a massive project, and there's been a lot of things that have gone wrong with it. And it's taken far longer than I would like it to have done. But we've got there, and the English version is now fully out, and we've got stragglers on the Kickstarter and a few issues here and there, but generally that Kickstarter's fulfilled now. And with the language variants, because it's coming out in French, German, and Spanish as well, so that's all coming along as well, much later than it should have been, I'll be honest with you, and that's really disappointing. And there's been a lot learned from that. But D-Day Dice is a big game, and it's back, and we brought it back, and that's awesome. And as you say, that then made me start thinking about solo games, because there's so many people that love to play board games, but maybe don't have people around them all the time that like that type of game. Family games tend to be things like Monopoly and Game of Life, and they're not games. Exactly. They're not games for people like us, because we don't. I guess it's a bit like wine connoisseurs. We're not going to drink Blue Nun because we want to drink something that's more refined. A lot of people don't know that there's anything beyond Blue Nun, and that's therefore what they drink. And for me, solitaire games became quite an interesting thing. So D-Day Dice is solitaire, but it's also co-op. And that's another thing for me. I really like playing games, but I don't always like to play you against me type games. I like storytelling games. I like games that tell a story as you play, hence like Devil's Run. But I also like competitive games where you work as a team, you work together for a common goal. So I love games like Wingspan. I love those sort of games, and D-Day Dice obviously being one of them. But that made me open up the mind to Airborne in Your Pocket. It also Pocket Landship, Zombie in Your Pocket, all these sort of games as well. And they're all really good games to play. And we've got a new one that we did recently called Astro Force, which is a really great sort of dice placement but solo game as well. And especially in this climate of unfortunate lockdown for most of us, or all of us, solo games can be a really good thing to do because you might be locked down on your own. So it fills a niche.
Speaking of the lockdown, one of the games I got from you a good few years ago now, Throwdown.
Yes.
Throwdown has been played quite a bit the last couple of weeks here. That's such a simple game. It's so much fun, so replayable, and it's been used to end arguments. It's like, what we're going to do? Let's play Throwdown and see who wins.
That game has been a real interesting because another guy that I know, a guy called Craig Andrews, I work with a little bit, and he does a lot of my computer stuff for me. So he's my computer genius behind the website and things like that. And he and his group of connoisseur gamers, shall I say, also really love Throwdown, but really it's not really been out there in the big wide world because it was just a small game, and how it came about is quite interesting. So literally I was walking down the stairs, and as I was walking down the stairs, I threw something by the front door because I wanted to remember to throw it out. And then I thought, oh man, we haven't seen games like this for a long time. So I was playing with that idea, and then fortuitously, this guy came into the shop that we had at the time, and he was showing me his models that he painted, and he was really good. But it turns out he was a graffiti artist. So he was telling me about this, and I said, well, I've just had this cool idea. I think it's cool anyway. Would you be interested in doing that together? So he said yes. So he created all the sort of graffiti artwork you see on the cards, but he also went round our local town, which is Leamington Spa, and found just really cool bits of architecture, and took photographs. So those pictures have been created, and then the images you see of the people on there, my wife did for me. So it's been a real little creation there, but. That game hasn't got as big as I think it should do, but obviously those that got it generally really like it, and it is good fun. It's good fun.
I know a few people that have it, and they really enjoy it as well. So I'm going to have to send more people your way and sort of promote that a wee bit better.
Yeah.
So I honestly, yourself as a parent, whenever you've got a small kid or a couple of kids, and you have to go away for the weekend or go away for a day out, pocket-sized games, that's where it has to be. And Idea in your pocket or Throwdown, stick them in the back pocket. You can play them anywhere. They're great wee travel games, and I recommend Throwdown to anyone. But tell me, let's just moving on. What's next for WordForge? What have you got coming out in the next year, couple of years?
Yeah, well, we did Pocket Landship as well, which has also been really quite popular and did well on Kickstarter, and that's. We should be getting that out to the shops, but unfortunately lockdown has happened and coronavirus has put a short-term stop on that. But that should hit the shops this year. It was meant to be released this month, but it hasn't been because we can't get it to the suppliers. Yeah, that's the one there. Again, another great. I can't take credit for it. It's created by a guy called Scott, and he's done a really good job. And he was very adamant when we created that game that we must make sure it stays small. He didn't want to go big because it's a pocket game. And, obviously that restricts commercial opportunities, but actually it was a really sensible move because it keeps it sweet, it keeps it neat, it keeps it, it doesn't get silly, because often with Kickstarter, games get silly because people release expansions or free cards or things like that. And as soon as you do that, it's cool, but it often breaks the game. And there's great examples of that happening all through the gaming industry. I won't name names because it would be impolite and yes that something's broken, but there is definitely And so anyway, that was a good call. So we did that one, and then we did one called Astro Force, which was released on Kickstarter only just before the lockdown happened, and that did it was as lockdown was beginning to happen, as coronavirus was beginning to kick in. Game didn't do as well as I was expecting, and we'll never know why. But basically, it's a Board Game Geek golden winner. It's a really good game. The mechanics are amazing. I believe the visuals are amazing as well. So that game will come out. We probably won't go massive on the wider spectrum of it, because quite clearly making these games costs a lot of money, and I don't want to tie up the entirety of the Kickstarter money on making 1,000 copies, which then we struggle to sell quickly. So we're going to keep that one limited, but again, we'll have it. It'll go out to the Kickstarter backers as it should do, and then we'll have it on our website, and we'll have it at limited end users. And then going forward, we've got plans to do new games with Emmanuel Aquin, who's the D-Day Dice guy. We're looking at bringing out a few other games that we've licensed. So A Zombie in My Pocket, which is created by a guy whose name I forget off the top of my head. But anyway, the game itself is what inspired Emmanuel to create Airborne in Your Pocket. I'm actually creating something at the moment, which is a dungeon crawl RPG miniature style game based in the Slay Industries world, which is part of Nightfall Games. That also segues into the other part of my sort of workings now, which is Wordforge Games and then Nightfall Games. And Nightfall Games is a role-playing games company which predominantly and only has a game called Slay Industries right now, which is awesome, created by this guy called Dave Allsop and Jared Earl, who I'm now working with. And then Nightfall's got 2 RPG games coming out, one of which is fairly soon, and neither of which I can tell you about too much, but I can tell you that one of them is a big one of them is a really big license, and it's something that it's amazing. There isn't a role-playing game for it already. And then the other one is a real pet project, but something that's got real level of excitement that's come out from Dave and Jared and a close colleague of theirs that we're bringing out later this year. So there's lots to come, but obviously we've got to get through coronavirus. We've got to get through finishing off getting the non-English versions of D-Day Dice out, and then just sort of like licking our wounds and seeing where we are in a month, 2 months, 4 months from now. Who knows? But yeah, lots to do, and we're sort of like focusing on getting as much internet content out for Slay Industries as well. So we've released some pay what you want documents. We've released some images today so that people can start playing on Roll20 and such like for role playing games. So lots coming. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
So tell me this: you're stuck in isolation. Top 3 games, top 3 go-to games.
Right. So my game's dependent on the fact that, and this is a good caveat to state before I go too far, I have a 12-year-old son, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old daughter. So some of the games here are sort of not necessarily my personal choices, but games that they want to play. What I have found myself playing in the last few weeks is a very old MB game called Hotel. And Hotel is a bit like Monopoly, but arguably better, and certainly something my son...
remember it,
yeah. And then he and I recently discovered an old game that you may or may not have heard of called Dragon Dice. And back in the day, this was a competitor for Magic the Gathering, as in the card game, but it's a dice-based game where you have bespoke dice that are all different colours and combinations, and they're like you create these 3 pools of army, and you fight against each other by rolling the dice and tactically. And it sounds very simple, but it's an amazingly tactical game. And one of the guys that rewrote the most recent version of the rules was saying to me, it's almost like it's a proper army game. It's a proper tactical game. And it really is, because you've got to think about, you've got potentially 4 ways of attacking, 4 ways of defending, 3 locations. You can go backwards, forwards, you can go into reserve, you can go forward. It's very complicated. And, you know, I've only played my son at it predominantly, but both of us are really thinking a lot, which proves it's a good game in my view. And then the third one, what's the third? Well, if I'm honest, the third one is Frozen, or as in Elsa and Anna, Dominoes, which I've been playing with my 6-year-old, and games that she's created based around them. But if it was down to me, I would be playing things like D-Day Dice. I'd be playing Pocket Landship, and the other thing I've been doing a reasonable amount of, I've been role play games over the internet. So I've been part of a D&D campaign that's been running for over 2 years, and we're still playing that. And I've been playing and GMing, which is new to me. I've never really GM'd before, but I've been GMing Slay Industries for a group of friends over the internet as well. So yeah, keep it busy on games. So and I'm really taking the opportunity to write more and actually be creative, because ever since Devil's Run, it's really been a case of almost being a business manager rather than a game creator, because that's what I had to do. And without sounding cocky, it's what I'm good at doing. It's my training, it's my experience.
Yeah.
But it's really been nice to get back to writing and creating rule sets. And you know, they're not like going to set the world alight, but it's really nice to do that. And you know, I'm quite excited about getting this game I'm currently creating out there, and more importantly, getting play tested beforehand again with my kids. So it should be good.
Do you find much changes in your games from your kids' input?
I think my son is a really clever gamer. He knows what he's doing, and so he and I. He's a good person to bounce things off, and I mean it's because I've trained him. Let's be honest. I mean, he's been since the age of about 5. He's been forced to play these games, but you know, he's in the past he's won Magic tournaments against, you know, proper Magic tournaments against grown-ups who don't really like being beaten by 10, 11-year-olds, as you can imagine. But he and I play quite a lot, but he obviously likes certain types of games, and I do as well. So yeah, doing that, and then he himself is beginning to start thinking about creating games. And my youngest daughter, she does it as well, but you know, obviously they're 6-year-old creations. But I think in the olden days I'd be playing things like Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, computer games, and if I'm honest, I'm not a big fan of the rule sets of the GW mass battle games anymore. Partly because I've been there for such a long time that I've moved on, but also I'm the more I think about it, the less I like a D6 system for a miniatures game. It's just too narrow. You know, if you've got a goblin fighting a Terminator in the real world, that should never be a contest. The Terminator is always going to win. Even a Terminator versus 50 goblins, it shouldn't be a contest. But because the D6 system, which is arguably only really a D4 system, because 1s are always a fail and 6s are always a pass, you've only got that little narrow window of subtlety. And I think that for me is something I'm not too keen on. So I much prefer D10 systems, D12 systems, even D8 systems for gaming, and D20 works well. The one I'm currently creating is a D20, but not because I want it to be super crunchy, but just I like a D20 because you can be subtle, and you can also do the critical hit thing. So you know, you roll a 20, it's definitely a hit. You roll a 1, you can't do that with D6.
You get a wide range of destruction opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like back to Devil's Run. I mean, D10 system, it uses D6s, but not really, and then it uses D3s for distance and travel. But that's because that's what was needed. It wasn't because I thought I need to use these 3 dice. It just they were the ones that work best, and I think that's important as well. So yeah, it's good. Lots of things, and then again, it's great to have the kids to play with, and it's great to have grown-ups to play with as well. And solo games are awesome. So happy days.
I could probably talk all night, but like you say, people just get fed up. Well, anyway, sorry, I'll cut back in here. Yeah. Well, listen, Mark, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for telling us about WordForge, about yourself, and about how you get into gaming. And we'd like to have you back in the future for another chat about some other products you have and some other games and some other ideas, and just have you back again for a bit more crack. But any last words you want to say to the guys?
All I'd say is it's lovely to see another good-looking bearded man. You know,
yes, we're a rare breed.
Yeah, I think we do look like brothers, and that's a bit scary. I think I feel sorry for you if you look like me. That's what all I can
say. Yes, for people who aren't in on the joke, I have been confused with Mark in the past. You know, but that's a story for the next time, maybe. Yeah. Well, Mark, it's good to chat to you again. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, and nice to speak to you. And I hope you're enjoying lockdown as much as I am, because it's been an opportunity. Yeah.
If it wasn't for gaming, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah, true.
Thank you.